Aujourd'hui, c'est une nouvelle invitée, c'est Marina Jaroszewicz. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Et on va switcher en anglais pour cette interview pour avoir plus facile. Je termine mon introduction. Donc, vous venez de Promote Ukraine. Et vous êtes Head of Advocacy chez Promote Ukraine. So, what is the role of Promote Ukraine?
Promote Ukraine is a civil society and media hub that exists in Brussels since 2015 to amplify voice of Ukrainian people, not only in Ukraine, but also outside Ukraine, so around the European Union, because we find ourselves here in the Brussels bubble.
So, you have more relation with the government in Ukraine?
That as well, but we try to facilitate contacts both ways. So to explain the EU to Ukrainians and to explain Ukraine to the Europeans.
Of course, we can talk about the situation in Ukraine. So, how would you describe this situation in Ukraine?
Yeah, well, 24th of February, we all woke up to a new reality. We talked about it for a long time, that Putin is not to be trusted and that he would not build up his troops on the border just for tricking people or for blackmailing, that there would be something. However, what we didn't anticipate is the scale of invasion. So the situation as of today is really horrible because he started with and here by he, I refer to Putin, he started with bombarding like military objects, so like regular type of war, but very soon it spilled over to civilians. And today, these are maternity hospitals that are being bombarded, and kindergartens and schools, and just residential areas. So basically, the situation as of today is that no single Ukrainian citizen is safe. The rocket can fall on any building. No one is protected. No one is secure.
And how is the situation in the neighboring countries, maybe in the European countries, just further Ukraine?
I think the situation is also difficult on two fronts. So first of all, countries like Poland, like Baltic states, and namely we're talking here about Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, as well as Slovakia, Hungary. So all our neighbors, they also feel threatened. So they know that they are next in line. So if...
is it really possible that we have a war between European Union with their NATO and Russia?
Putin will go as far as we allow him to. So if Ukrainians fail now, Putin would not stop. He would not say, Ukraine was enough, I'm satisfied, I put my foot down here, and that's it. So the task for today, for each and every of us, is to think how to stop Putin in our country, how to make him fail, how to defeat him, so that all the other countries are not in danger anymore. So I was speaking that the situation is difficult on two fronts for our neighbors. So first of all, yes, this is also immediate security threat. And here it's not on, lately the rockets have been falling 20 kilometers away from Polish border. And, rockets could be launched from territory of Belarus, let's say, and they can reach those countries that I named before. Secondly, if Putin manages to harm or to do harm to our nuclear power plants, then we talk about radiation. And radiation knows no borders. So it will also not stop on the territory of Ukraine, but radiation can spread further. So this is security threat. There is another thing, many Ukrainians fleeing. And I detest referring to Ukrainians as refugees, because in fact, these are people who my compatriots didn't want to leave the country. So they are now protection seekers, asylum seekers. But they are not those who are just like looking for a better place of life. They are those who are fighting for their life, fleeing just to have shelter and to rescue their families. But normally, every Ukrainian wants to be back and wants to rebuild the country and wants to prosper, wants to see our country prosper.
And how can we help the people, maybe the refugees who are coming just in Belgium, in Brussels, for example?
So because we're talking about Brussels particularly, we should talk about 3 levels on which we do advocacy. First level is a state level, when we actually put requests and sometimes demands vis-a-vis the governments. So not only the Belgian government, but also all other EU nations represented here in Brussels. So we ask to shelter the sky, we ask to ban Russia from SWIFT completely, we ask for embargo on oil and gas. And this could be done through manifestations. So when you hear about another protest that we run, we do ask you very much kind of not to ignore it, but come numerous to show that civil society, people just in general, do want to see it happen. So we need to put a bit more pressure on governments. This is state level.
Is the only solution to stop the war, or maybe to protect Ukraine?
Well, protect Ukraine, but by protecting Ukraine is protect Europe.
Okay.
Second level is corporate level or business level. To stop all cooperation with Russia. Many businesses have fortunately already withdrawn, so they do not sell goods anymore, they do not produce goods anymore on the factories, because by this we keep on sponsoring Putin, we keep on sponsoring Kremlin, and we allow him to continue the war. So paying, for having, war is the wrong thing. So on a corporate level, we should do whatever possible to stop cooperation in economic terms, in business terms. It should not be business as usual anymore. And third level, citizen level. This is also not least important. We get, fortunately, hundreds, I would say, of calls, of messages, of letters every day by people who are saying, I have an extra room, or I have my second house somewhere like in the seaside. I would want to host Ukrainians, or I want to bring humanitarian help. Where can I do this? So this is also very important because, as I said, the scale of war is huge. So people are fleeing not only from central Ukraine or eastern Ukraine or southern Ukraine, but from all over. And of course,
yes, we are talking about 200,000 refugees only in Belgium.
They are expected to arrive at one point, like up to 200,000. This is estimation. As for today, I'm just coming now from the Center for Registration, which is at Palais 8 on Brussels Expo. Over there, around, if I'm not mistaken, 15,000 people have been registered thus far. So 15,000 and 200,000 is still a big difference, but as I say, if situation persists, if it continues, then unfortunately we would see more and more people coming, not because they're willing, but because they have no choice.
And now there is a big of solidarity in Belgium, but in the long term, how can we accommodate all the migrants who have maybe no family in Belgium? What's the expectation on the long term?
Here I think the EU in general, and Belgium in particular, already has vast experience due to migration crisis of 2015 and also prior waves of migration. So fortunately, the system is there, it's in place. There exist numerous integration programs, language courses, help with the job search through, I wouldn't name the agencies, but you all know them. So fortunately, it's already in place. I think what is needed is just the adjustment because never before, let's say, services were provided in our native language, Ukrainian. So Russian is what normally you could kind of get or expect, but of course for us it's very hurtful to be running away from aggressor as Ukrainians, and then through, like, in our process of integration elsewhere, needing to use the language of aggressor. So what I would kind of plead to do is to introduce the services in Ukrainian with the help of volunteers. So we do have people that are fluent in English and French, in Dutch, and could facilitate translation to Ukrainian. Just yesterday we recorded a video explaining how to look for a job in Belgium with Ukrainian subtitles. So this is already a first step, but of course it has to be done in many other areas like hospitality, like mobility, and many others, just to again help this transition.
And what are maybe the next steps of this war? When can we expect the end of this war, do you think?
It really depends on how fast we react. To my mind, what is going wrong in all this narrative is that here in Europe, in Brussels and Belgium, we see people coming, and we obviously want to help those who we see, who are coming. And we already concentrate on these mid-term and long-term programs, how to integrate children to educational system, how to help job seekers, and so on and so forth. But by this, we very often bypass the reality. And the reality is that today is 22nd day of war, and it has not been stopped yet. So what are we to expect, you're asking, and I'm replying that the longer we kind of tolerate, the longer it will persist. The higher will be the numbers of people coming here and looking for temporary protection and so on and so forth. So we just have to rewind and think back and say, what can we do today to stop war today? And these are, of course, these decisions cannot be taken by regular citizens in their daily jobs, but I'm saying that everything matters. And that's why when you ask me about levels of advocacy, I started with the state level. So putting pressure on decision makers to stop because they have power, but then also business, because economics is also very important. Like if you don't have money, you probably cannot purchase any more missiles, tanks and so on and so forth. And then third level, yes, do help people whom you face, like on a personal, on an individual basis. But when will it stop? As soon as we take all the three measures and not just pick and choose one.
And last question, maybe are there problems that we can need to anticipate, but we are not yet talking about? Maybe you have some problems we don't know imagine today.
Yeah, I think big mistake, and I actually here to also apologize that we Ukrainians did not manage to convince Europe, the EU, who Putin is. When he invaded in 2014, Ukrainians started talking about how irrational he is, how aggressive he is, how blatant his violations are. But and sanctions were put in place. But the fact that 8 years after, he still decided to go forth and to have a fully fledged invasion in Ukraine means that for 8 years we were doing something, but apparently not enough. So what problems do I anticipate in the future? That we waste this chance again to wake up and to realize whom we're dealing with. We as Ukrainians have very big difficulties to hear when people say we need to negotiate, because negotiations have already taken place. They've been tried in all the possible formats, in Normandy format, in Minsk formats, with different intermediaries and different platforms, different fora. Yet we fight today physically. So this is why I think that the big problem could be not to realize and not to understand what Putin is further capable of, and to be applying our European mindset of values, of human dignity, of protection of human rights to his siege, which is totally wrong because he has no regard for human life and human dignity. So how to avoid it is to actually, this second time, see that we were not joking, we were not kidding, we were not trying to just, how do you call it, like call wolf, and call everybody to our rescue. No, this is not a question only of Ukrainian independence or sovereignty, or let's say democracy, but it's a question for entire Europe to wake up and to realize whom we are dealing with.
Marina Jaroszewicz, thank you. You are also the head of advocacy in Promote Ukraine.